Nelson Mandela's life, spanning nearly a century, was marked by profound experiences and achievements that transformed both his nation and the world. Here's a deeper look into key phases and contributions throughout his life. Mandela was born into the Thembu royal family within the Xhosa nation. His father was a chief in Vezo and a councillor to the Thembu monarchy, which imbued Mandela with a strong sense of cultural heritage and responsibility. After his father's passing, Mandela was taken under the wing of Chief Yongintaba Dalindyebo, who provided him with educational opportunities and moral guidance. Mandela attended local Methodist schools, reflecting both his traditional African upbringing and early exposure to Western education and Christian principles. These experiences formed a foundation for his later views on justice, equality, and the importance of education. Mandela attended the University of Fort Hare, then the only Western-style higher education institution available to black South Africans. Here he studied law and was introduced to the ideas of African nationalism. His involvement in student politics led to his participation in a boycott, resulting in his expulsion. After leaving Fort Hare, Mandela moved to Johannesburg, where he worked in various jobs, including as a night watchman before beginning work as a clerk in a law firm. This exposure to urban South African life and apartheid's harsh reality deeply influenced him. It was in Johannesburg that he became more politically aware and committed to the African National Congress, or ANC. Alongside Walter Sisulu, Oliver Tambo and others, Mandela helped establish the ANC Youth League in 1944. They advocated for a more radical approach to achieving freedom and rights for black South Africans. The Defiance Campaign was Mandela's first major political engagement involving organized acts of civil disobedience to oppose apartheid laws. His leadership and speeches during the campaign brought him national prominence and solidified his reputation as a leader committed to fighting apartheid. Mandela and Tambo Law Firm. Mandela co-founded South Africa's first black law firm with Oliver Tambo in Johannesburg. They provided legal representation to black South Africans who faced injustice under apartheid, often at little or no cost. 1956, treason trial. Mandela, alongside over 150 activists, was arrested and charged with treason. The trial lasted until 1961 and ended in acquittal. This trial demonstrated Mandela's commitment to non-violent resistance and drew global attention to South Africa's struggles under apartheid. By the early 1960s, Mandela recognized that peaceful resistance was not achieving results, especially after the Sharpeville massacre, in which 69 black South Africans were killed during a peaceful protest. Mandela co-founded Umkhonto we Sizwe, or Spear of the Nation, the armed wing of the ANC, aiming to carry out sabotage against government facilities while minimizing human casualties. Mandela sought military training abroad, traveling secretly across Africa and Europe to build support and seek resources. He received military training in Ethiopia and Algeria, preparing himself for an eventual guerrilla campaign. Mandela was first arrested in 1962 and sentenced to 5 years for inciting strikes and leaving the country without a passport. However, in 1963, evidence of further sabotage plans led to the famous Rivonia trial, where he and other leaders faced charges of sabotage and treason. Mandela's speech from the dock at the Rivonia trial, where he expressed his willingness to die for a free and democratic South Africa, became a defining moment. He stated, "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society. It is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." He and several co-defendants were sentenced to life imprisonment. Conditions on Robben Island. Mandela spent 18 years on Robben Island, where he and other prisoners endured harsh conditions, hard labor, and limited contact with the outside world. They worked in a lime quarry and faced extreme isolation and difficult conditions. Mandela used this time to further his education and deepen his understanding of politics and philosophy. Leadership and influence. Despite his confinement, Mandela became a symbol of the anti-apartheid movement. He maintained discipline, morale and solidarity among the prisoners, while international pressure and campaigns for his release continued to grow. Transfer and secret negotiations. In 1982, Mandela and other leaders were moved to Pollsmoor prison and later to Victor Verster prison, where conditions were relatively better, allowing Mandela some contact with the outside world. Negotiations for a democratic South Africa. In the late 1980s, South Africa faced intense internal resistance and international sanctions. Mandela began secret talks with South African government officials, understanding that the future of South Africa required negotiation. These discussions laid the groundwork for the end of apartheid. Release on February 11, 1990. After 27 years in prison, Mandela was finally released amid global celebration. His first speech called for unity and peace, and he urged South Africans to continue the fight through peaceful means. Transition to democracy. Mandela became the ANC leader and worked closely with President F.W. de Klerk to transition South Africa to democracy. They negotiated the end of apartheid and paved the way for the country's first multiracial elections. Mandela's diplomacy and patience were instrumental in avoiding a potential civil war. Nobel Peace Prize, 1993. In recognition of his efforts, Mandela and de Klerk jointly received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. Election and historic presidency. In 1994, Mandela became South Africa's first black president, marking the country's first free and fair election. His presidency focused on national reconciliation and addressing the social and economic inequalities caused by apartheid. Truth and Reconciliation Commission, TRC. Mandela established the TRC, led by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, to investigate human rights abuses under apartheid. This allowed victims and perpetrators to share their experiences and offered a unique model of transitional justice. Focus on education and healthcare. Mandela prioritized education and healthcare, establishing policies to address the deep divides and poverty caused by apartheid. He also started initiatives for rural development and economic reform, although his government faced challenges in tackling systemic poverty and unemployment. Post-presidency activism. After stepping down in 1999, Mandela continued his advocacy, particularly on issues of peace, children's welfare, and AIDS awareness. His influence remained strong, and he was a moral voice on global issues. AIDS activism. Mandela became a vocal advocate for AIDS awareness, especially after his son Magatho died of AIDS-related complications. His stance helped reduce the stigma surrounding the disease in South Africa. Passing and global mourning. Mandela passed away on December 5, 2013, at the age of 95. His death was marked by a global outpouring of grief, with leaders and citizens worldwide paying tribute to his legacy. Global legacy and recognition. Symbol of resilience and forgiveness, Mandela is remembered as a symbol of hope, resilience and forgiveness. His emphasis on reconciliation rather than revenge helped South Africa transition to a peaceful democracy. Cultural and social impact. Mandela's influence extends beyond politics. he has become a cultural icon, inspiring movements for civil rights and justice worldwide. Honours and memorials, numerous streets, buildings, awards, and even a species of orchid, Paravanda Nelson Mandela, have been named after him, reflecting his enduring legacy. Mandela's life story is a powerful testament to the human spirit's capacity for change, justice, and compassion. His values of equality, freedom, and unity continue to resonate, inspiring generations to strive for a fairer world.